Hey everybody, Joe Dayano here, aka Twisted Gemini, and welcome to Twisted Gemini TV. I know it's only been 2 days since my last video post, but something occurred that I just had to talk to you guys about. So, firstly, I want to give a congratulatory shout out to Dominic Cruz for retaining the UFC Bantamweight title the other night, and also to the new UFC middleweight champion Michael Bisping, who won the title on the same card by defeating then champion Luke Rockhold in the first round. Now, sticking with the UFC, two subjects which are linked together, ironically enough. It was announced that WWE's Brock Lesnar, who is a former UFC heavyweight champion, will be returning to the UFC, albeit for one fight only, at UFC 200, which I believe is in July. Now, and don't quote me on that, I'm just thinking it's in July. If I'm wrong, please feel free to tell me in the comments section. Now, Lesnar was allowed, like I said, by WWE to appear at this event one time only, which is a surprise considering the fact that after Brock's last WWE contract expired after WrestleMania, WWE went into negotiations with him and they threw a lot of money at him. I believe Brock will be the highest paid superstar at WrestleMania from now on. Once again, I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. But also, the major thing that they gave him was creative control, which that basically means that he chooses when he appears for them. They might be able to call up and say, hey, Brock, would you mind doing this? He ultimately says yes or no, and if he says no, it's no. And also, following that contract signing that Brock did, he outright said that he was closing the door on his MMA career to focus on WWE. So basically, he got a lot of money and creative control, and he said that was it for MMA. But this came about. Now, they still don't have an opponent announced for him yet. I guess they're trying to come up with one, which I know some people think that it could be Mark Hunt, but I kind of question that because I don't, with Mark Hunt being a knockout specialist, I question if UFC would want Brock's first fight to be against a guy that basically does the walk away, however you want to put it, knockout, which basically means he knocks you out and you hit the ground and he just walks away. That would be the equivalent, considering how long Brock has been away from MMA, that would be the equivalent of when UFC put him in with Frank Mir, knowing that Brock wasn't that seasoned as an MMA fighter and Brock ended up losing by submission. Now, my thing also is, and I was discussing this with a friend of mine, you know who you are, so I ain't gonna give you no shine in my video. If you don't like it, suck it. But what myself and a friend of mine wonder is, what does WWE get out of this? Because I feel like no way they're going to let Brock just go there and risk him getting hurt and not getting something out of it. I question whether or not maybe what WWE asked for in return, if they did ask for something, that is, if they asked for UFC's blessing to use Ronda Rousey in a sanctioned WWE match. Now, thing about that is Ronda was supposed to fight for the UFC women's bantamweight title, possibly here in New York, at UFC New York. That was pushed back due to the fact that Ronda needs knee surgery again, and she's going to be out until December or January. So one of those two dates is more than likely when Ronda's actually going to get her title shot. So if she's still under contract with the UFC by then, if she doesn't retire, because basically Ronda had said that regardless of the outcome of said title shot, she was going to retire. She also said a while back that she was going to retire by the time she was 30. So basically, Ronda's going to retire regardless. And so, I mean, obviously, if she does retire, then they can't do anything to stop her. But if she's still fighting, maybe then they can. Sorry for that brief interruption, folks. But yeah, so that's what I was wondering, if maybe it was a talent for talent exchange, or maybe it's just like an advertising thing that WWE is getting. Because like I said, no way they're going to let Brock go there and not get anything out of it, especially if he's risking getting injured in said fight. The other issue that's come from this whole Brock Lesnar thing involves MMA reporter Ariel Helwani. Now, Ariel at one point covered MMA and the UFC specifically for Fox. He appeared on UFC Tonight, which is on Fox Sports 1, pay-per-views, pre-fight shows, post-fight shows, fight night cards he'd occasionally appear on, things like that, until he basically cut ties with Fox in total. He doesn't work for them at all anymore, and I believe that was due to Fox not wanting to work with him anymore. Once again, I could be wrong about that, so don't quote me. If you guys know any different, please comment in the comment section. Basically, at the previously mentioned card for Bisping and Cruz, Ariel Helwani was there. He was basically there to do his job, do MMA interviews. And before he could speak to Michael Bisping, I believe it was Helwani said, because basically I'm reading all this off of Twitter, Helwani's Twitter account. He'd said that he was approached by UFC people or security, whatever it was, and escorted out. His credentials were confiscated, and I believe he also said that he was banned for life from UFC events. And reason being is because apparently Ariel Helwani broke the story about Brock Lesnar returning to the UFC before UFC wanted it released. Now, I can understand UFC not wanting this to get out until they wanted it to get out, but to treat a respected, award-winning journalist like Ariel Helwani like that is taking it way past the extreme, in my opinion. Helwani, like I said, he's an award-winning journalist. He's a great reporter for MMA. He's always been. For, like I said, UFC to treat him like this, that's way disrespectful. To ban him for life, take his credentials, embarrass him like they did at the last UFC event, that's way disrespectful, and I'm surprised at UFC for doing that. I mean, granted, there's always been stories about how there was an issue between him and Dana White. Like Dana didn't like his questionnaire or something like that. I don't remember. But point is, the UFC disrespected Ariel by treating him the way they did. You don't need to take the guy's credentials and embarrass him just because he broke a story before you wanted it out. You could have approached him after the UFC pay-per-view, treated him like an adult, like civilized human beings, explain to him why you had an issue with what he did and that you had an issue. But folks, that's all the time for this video. I want to thank you for watching. Please comment. I'll comment on anything in reply. Good, bad, ugly, don't matter to me. I'll comment. Until next video, as always, whatever country you're in, whatever state you're in, be happy, be safe. And until next time, this is Twisted Gemini TV signing off.